Israeli institutions perceived the Palestinian citizen of Israel, especially and mainly in crucial time, in emergency time, as belong to the enemy, as fifth column. Immediately the harsh measures start to be against them. This is why we found tens few that they were arrested and detained. And we have universities that started to open disciplinary cases against students because they publish in their Instagrams or Facebook things against the war. Israeli institution, the police, and many of the universities perceive that expressing your solidarity with the Palestinian people in Gaza, express your anger about what Israel army is doing to the Palestinian in Gaza, express your opposition against the war, is supporting the enemy.
تحياتي للجميع في كمان حلقة من بودكاست الميدان. أنا عبد أبو شحادة عبر موقع رب 48. بس زي دايما قبل ما نبلش ما تنسوش تتابعونا عبر جميع تطبيقات البودكاست، سبوتيفاي، جوجل، أنغامي، أبل، بتلاقونا هناك. بسبب الحرب بالفترة القريبة بالأسابيع القريبة رح ننشر أكتر حلقات في الإنجليزي، ولكن رح نرجع للغة العربية في الأسابيع المقبلة. والسبب انه قررنا ننشر اكتر بالانجليزي بهاي الفترة عشان مهم لنا نطلع لبرا التحديات اللي احنا بنمرقها في سياق الحرب وخلال الحرب. الحلقة سجلتها مع دكتور حسن جبارين عن الملاحقة القانونية ضد الفلسطينيين في الداخل في سياق الحرب. Once again, thank you for joining me in another episode of El Midan podcast by Arab 48 website. In this pod, I talked to Dr. Hassan Jabareen, the General Director of Adalah. Adalah, for those who don't know, means justice in Arabic, is an independent human rights organization and a legal center located in Haifa, and is considered to be one of the most important NGOs in the Palestinian community in Israel. Dr. Hassan Jabareen, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
As I mentioned earlier, the context of this pod is to talk about the legal prosecution of the Palestinian citizens of Israel during the days of the war for the past almost 3 weeks. But before we start, if you can give us just a brief introduction of the legal status of the Palestinian citizens of Israel.
Yeah, usually people think, especially foreigners, think that Palestinians just live in West Bank, Gaza, and East Jerusalem. No, there are Palestinians inside the Green Line. They are citizens of the State of Israel. They have been citizens since the establishment of the state, 1948. This group, in fact, the remaining group from the Palestinians after the Nakba, that the overwhelming of the Palestinian people became refugees. The remain who stayed and remain on their homeland, this is the Palestinian citizen of Israel, the Palestinian who became citizen of Israel, whom I am belong to, fifth of the population of Israel. They are citizen, formal citizen. They have the right to elect and to be elected for the Israeli parliament, the Knesset. And also enjoy some freedom of expression. They live until 66 under a military regime. This military regime moved to the West Bank, Gaza after the occupation of 1967. This group is discriminated against in all the fields. There is no one field that Israel doesn't officially discriminate against. Israel defined itself as a Jewish state for the Jewish people only. This is the only state in the world that doesn't define itself as state for all of its citizens. In fact, Israel rejects the notion of being state for all of its citizens, and this is why we found that the Palestinians, after 75 years of the establishment of Israel, still suffer in serious and deep discrimination and oppression in all the fields of life. Just to give you example, 4th of the population of the Palestinian who are citizens of Israel belong to what we called uprooted villages or displaced persons, that they were displaced from their villages in the 1950s of the former century, and they are not allowed to come back to their land. 75% of the private lands of Palestinian citizens was confiscated by Israel. There is in the south where the Bedouin lives, about 150,000 people live under unrecognized villages, meaning that villages that they have no status. And lately, during wars, as we are going to speak, the oppression against them become serious and deeper.
Here is where we go into recent events. It's been 3 weeks since the war in Gaza began. Thousands of Palestinians have lost their lives. Since the first day, the State of Israel has called for a state of emergency. And from day one, we are witnessing prosecution against these Palestinian citizens that you just mentioned. Hundreds have lost their jobs, expelled from universities, and even arrested for showing any sort of sympathy towards Palestinians in Gaza. To the extent we have witnessed cases where people were arrested for posting a verse from the Quran with no context to the war. Can you shed some light on what is happening right now?
Of course, and everybody of us, the Palestinian citizens, our leadership, our NGOs, they recognize that what Israeli society passed in the 7th of October by the massacre that happened in the south of the Jewish Israeli settlement is very, very harsh one and terrible moment for the Israeli society, and it's unprecedented. This is not something that during the war even passed. So we acknowledge that, we are aware about that. So this is why the Palestinian, many of the leadership of the Palestinians, they express their opinion about this massacre. However, Israel institutions, because in those times they perceive, and usually they perceive the Palestinian citizens not as citizens, but as belong to the enemy, fifth column. And because of that, we start immediately to see and to hear voices from ministers and officials, including the police and the minister of the police, threatening the Palestinian society from exercising their right of speech. Usually during wars, we as Palestinian citizens all the time, our position is clear against wars. We have demonstrations usually during the wars, express our opinion against wars, against oppressions, against attacking civilians all the time. Now, this time, because of the uniqueness of the events, the Palestinian leadership didn't call yet for a demonstration, mass demonstration against the war, despite the fact that we see daily what Israel army is doing in Gaza. There is attempt of genocide in Gaza. Many neighborhoods were deleted, erased. Thousands has no shelters. Hundreds under the destruction of their houses. Lack of hundreds also were killed. Thousands were injured and are injured. A lack of medicine, lack of medical aids. There is no one place that's safe in Gaza. The schools are not saved. Mosques are not saved. Churches are not saved. Streets are not saved. The destructed house, under the destruction of it, it's not saved. So, of course, many of our youth express their solidarity with the people of Gaza, express their opinion against the war, wish for Gaza people, and we wish for Gaza people to pass, our people, to pass those crucial, harsh moments. But Israel, because Israeli institutions perceive the Palestinian citizen of Israel, especially and mainly in crucial time, in emergency time, as belong to the enemy, as fifth column, immediately the harsh measures start to be against them. This is why we found tens of youths that they were arrested and detained. And we have universities that started to open disciplinary cases against students because they publish in their Instagrams or Facebook things against the war. Israeli institution, the police, and many of the universities perceive that expressing your solidarity with the Palestinian people in Gaza, express your anger about what Israel army is doing to the Palestinian in Gaza, express your opposition against the war is supporting the enemy, supporting Hamas. And this is why we face for the first time since 48 highest number of students that they are under risk to be expelled from the university or their studying will be suspended. We as Adalah represent 90 students. This is the highest number that we had in any emergency in the life of the organization. And this is the highest number of students comparing to any community, national minority community that they have their students in universities. There is no state that has an emergency such a high rate of students that belong to a national or racial minority that they are facing such oppression as our students in Israeli universities and Israeli colleges.
Dr. Hassan, you have a very impressive background with your legal work representing the case for the Palestinian citizens of Israel. The most notable out of them was the Org Committee that worked after the Second Intifada, where the military and the police killed 13 citizens throughout the Second Intifada, 13 Palestinian citizens. One of the most important insights that came out of this report, which is an official report, is that the state institution, the police, the army, saw the Palestinian citizens as enemies. And this happened 20 years ago. 20 years forward. Do you think anything changed since these events or since this committee?
This committee official commission was established in, as you said, 20 years ago, after October 2000 events. 13 Palestinians inside the Green Line, they were killed and shot by Israeli forces, Israeli police forces during demonstrations that they participate. And this commission said that none of the cases was justified to kill. And this commission said that the army behaved in a illegal way, exceed its power and forces against the participants of the demonstrations, and the bottom line, the killing was illegal. And beside that, the commission, as you said that the police must stop refer to the Palestinian citizen as enemy. They are citizens of the state. And some of the recommendation also was to stop using a live bullet against the demonstrators in order not to kill them and not to injure them. The good thing that happened in the last 20 years that the police really in demonstrations don't kill anymore. We don't have cases of killing during demonstrations. However, they are using different powers, harsh powers. Just last week, people, they wanted to demonstrate in Haifa against the war. The police prohibited them to have the demonstration. So no need to kill and to shoot people, simply no demonstration. Another demonstration of in Al-Fahim. People in Al-Fahim wanted to demonstrate against the war. the police immediately dismantle the demonstration and prohibit the people to do.
I just want a quick question on this matter, because the question is it the police that is doing the arrest and investigation, or is it the Shin Bet that is more and more involved in these cases? Shin Bet, the secret police.
Yeah, we have to know that the Israeli police is headed by a minister who is, I can say for surely, he is the racist official minister in the world. There is no official minister in the world that racist more than him. He was indicted before Israeli courts for supporting terrorism and for supporting racism against Palestinians. And he is the minister of the police. He is the person who has to take care for the life and safety of the people. So, and all the time he is inciting against the Palestinian citizen. One of the things that during this war that he changed, that to arm the citizens of the state, to have flexible regulations to allow any citizen who want to be armed. Usually, of course, Jewish citizen, because one of the criteria that to give person who serve in the army or one of his family serve in the army, the Palestinians don't serve in the army. So in the end, you arm Jewish citizens against Palestinian citizens, because the Jewish citizen lives with Palestinian citizens. They are not in the war in Gaza, the army in the war. So for example, Haifa as a mixed city, Palestinian and Jews, Israeli Jews, you arm the Jewish community here. When you arm them, you encourage them to be armed. You're saying you are living with the enemy and be careful. And when you encourage them to be armed, you send them message that you are allowed to use your arm when you feel that it's needed. So in fact, you have institutions. The minister himself, he doesn't need the Shin Bet. In fact, the Shin Bet more moderate than him. This is like a strange situation. You have minister that he is, his job description is to chase Palestinian. His job description to be against the Palestinian citizen. His job description to show his constituency that he is oppressing the Palestinian citizen. So by this minister, you don't need any other aid to help and to make the situation tolerable. Under his situation, we are witnessing to very world unique phenomena. We, the Palestinian citizen, have the highest rate in the world for internal crimes. And why we have this highest rate? Because the police has policy, let them kill each other. Let the Palestinians kill each other in their villages. I am speaking about criminal crime. We have the average very high. We have 15 persons per 100,000 persons. 15 persons are killed, average, per 100,000. In order to compare our situation with West Bank and Gaza and Jordan, that they are the same people, Palestinians and Jordanian, they have one person per 100,000. We are the highest in the world. The only group that compete with us is Latin America, where you have states that they have 20 persons per 100,000.
Third world countries.
Yeah, we are heading, like the average in the world is 6.2 person per 100,000. We have 15. So this is why, because the official policy, let them kill each other and we will help to kill them. So this is the situation that we live under.
Dr. Hassan, I want to focus on the judicial system. A couple of weeks ago, I heard a podcast with Banish, who was previously the president of the High Supreme Court a couple of years ago. And she ended the podcast. The podcast was about the reform that Benjamin Netanyahu was trying to push, and she was advocating against this reform. And she finished the podcast saying something very important, saying that the settlements in the West Bank are ABC. She literally used this term. This is like, it's ABC, forbidden under international law, but we are defending the state and the institute, and we see ourselves part of this institute. So I want to talk about the judicial system, on how it's operating, and in the context that just a few weeks ago, hundreds of thousands of Israelis were demonstrating against the reform, claiming that that the judicial system should be independent from any political intervention. How do you see the judicial system working today, especially in the cases that you are representing in the past 3 weeks in the context of the war on Gaza?
Yeah, it's true that before the war, this war, every Saturday, thousands of Israelis for more than 40 weeks demonstrate to defend the judiciary system from this racist, chauvinist, extreme right-wing government, Netanyahu government, that really are willing in very consistent way to go to the streets and to fight and to struggle for rule of law. However, we the Palestinians are not part of those demonstrations. Not because we believe that the rule of law is not important for us. In fact, we as national minority, rule of law is the most important. And we are the most vulnerable group from weakening the rule of law. But we are not part of that because the demonstrators perceive the court as a democratic court, because their messages is that the state is democratic state and they want to defend the state as a Jewish and democratic state. And we want a democratic state, not Jewish democratic. We want democratic state for all of its citizens. And we have critique against the court. So the messages of the demonstrations don't fit the Palestinian status. We see the situation differently, although we appreciate the fact that the demonstrators are going to the street against this government policy. For your question, how we see the court in the last 2 weeks. We represent tens of detainees, and our lawyers daily in the court defending people who are arrested by the police. The court generally speaking, during emergency time, and especially this unique emergency time, which is different than other war times that we passed, it's going hand with the police. Like if the police asked to extend the detentions, the court accept the request. And the court perceive itself during emergency as part of the militaristic efforts of the state, part of the national security efforts of the state, not to put obstacles, but to defend the security and the police forces. This is why we succeed in the rare cases. Yes, we succeed in cases, but they are the exception. Exceptions, sometimes you have to be lucky that you are before courageous judges and courageous courts. So we have different courts. The court of Haifa different than the court of Nazareth. The court of Nazareth usually more nationalistic. In emergency time, Haifa court more liberal. But still, the overwhelming of the cases, the court follow the police demand. And in the exceptional cases we win, we try to minimize the days of arrest. We try to minimize the harsh consequences that the detainees are passing.
It's interesting that you're saying this, because usually in a liberal democratic state, usually it's the courts that take upon themselves to defend minority rights. And what I'm understanding from what you are saying is that even the institute that should focus on defending minority rights is aligning itself with the war efforts, with the government, and not doing their job as they should.
Right. We have to know also to be with full integrity, professional integrity. All the courts in the world during emergency, they are harsh and follow the executive. The problem in Israel that the emergencies are very frequent, every 2 years. It's not like to compare with America. It's not that every 2 years you have emergency and national emergency in US. Here, because you have the prolonged and the longest period of occupation since the Second World War, and the occupation create clashes by itself, because occupation by itself is violence too. So you have the emergency almost in 1 or every 2 years. So every 2 years you face this problem. And the courts usually with the state. Now, we spoke about the Jewish Israeli demonstrators defending the judiciary. Those demonstrators closed main streets. They declare about days that they called it disrupted days and anger days. And they had clashes with the police in many different places. But yes, some of them were arrested. But none of the cases that people were arrested for 3, 4, 5, 6 days. Here, the Palestinians find themselves are arrested at least to start with 5 or 6 days for very minor things, comparing to the Israeli Jews demonstrators. So discrimination, we have it before the court. Many academic Israeli researchers show that the data shows that there is serious discrimination in criminal cases between a Palestinian citizen and a Jewish citizen of the country.
The police force. A couple of days ago, maybe a week ago, the chief commissioner, Kobi Shabtai, has published a video on the official police force channel on TikTok while briefing other police officials, saying that they will not tolerate any demonstration coming from the Palestinians, and threatening anyone who wants to show solidarity with Gaza, he won't mind putting them on the bus to Gaza. So in one case, you're seeing the political official that should be in charge of the policy making of the police is a extreme right racist. But now we're also seeing the official itself, the bureaucrat himself, Kobi Shabtai. How scared should the Palestinian community be, the citizens, in times where the person who should be in charge of their safety, and there's other things other than the war, there's also crime and other subjects. How scared should we be in this context if the police official, the number one police, talks like this?
Yeah, this statement that you said that the chief of the police, Shabtai, said, he said that no right for demonstration, no freedom of expression for the Palestinian citizen of Israel during this war. This is his statement. We are trying to challenge it, and maybe we will file petition to the Supreme Court against him, because since he gave this, we found that the police prohibit in many different places the Palestinian to demonstrate. For your question about the fear and scare, I want to be fully honest. For the first time, I have and faced staff members of Adalah in a staff meeting yesterday. They are saying we have to speak not about our cases, but our safety as lawyers. We don't feel safe now in this country under this police leadership. We don't feel safe that even to argue freely legal arguments, because maybe the police will find those arguments as incitement. We don't feel safe that the incitement of the police won't lead to the fact that Jewish extreme persons come and attack our office, where our office is located within a Jewish Israeli area. This is not just our staff say that. And for the first time, I am, as General Director, face this discussion with my staff.
And you've been a lawyer going through the Second Intifada.
I was lawyer in 25 years. In all the last 25 years, I was in all the emergency situations.
And you've never seen anything like this before?
Never. And for the first time also, I got phone calls from Palestinians, professors in Israeli academia. They say that they are scared about themselves because many Jewish right-wing, extreme right-wing Israeli Jewish students incite against them that they are supporting, about those professors supporting Hamas or supporting terror. And why the right wing say that? Because their critique is academic critique. So for the right wing, it's perceived that you are left, belong to the left and progressive. So you are supporting the terror. So this is the first time that I see such a fear, serious fear, among the elite group of the Palestinian citizen of Israel. And I never have had something like that or talks like that about fear and being scared.
As of today, things concerning the war is not clear. Obviously, there's escalation in the north with Lebanon. Things might even escalate to places we didn't imagine. We're seeing militaries of the world, superpowers, mobilizing their troops, the carriers into this region. Things might escalate. Do you think, in the contents of what you've just said throughout this podcast, is there any space for international intervention concerning the Palestinian citizens of Israel? And the reason why I'm saying this, because we are the only Palestinian group that don't have any independent institutions. The Palestinians in the West Bank, they have their own institutions, in the Gaza and obviously other places. We don't have any sort of protection. Do you think the international community should ask questions concerning what's happening to the Palestinian citizens? And what do you think worst case scenario might happen to the Palestinians in the upcoming month throughout the days of the war?
We are demanding international protection. The High Follow-Up Committee of the Palestinian Citizens of Israel, which is the highest representative political body of the Palestinian citizens, which include all the Palestinian member of the Knesset, all the Palestinians mayors, and all the Palestinian political parties, ask the UN to have international protection, to protect our status, to protect our situation, to intervene. And we are going, Adalah, to have briefing before the embassies in Tel Aviv to tell them what we are passing. and to ask their states to intervene. Now, of course, when we are speaking about international protection, we are not speaking about armed protection. It's like beyond imagination. We are asking that those governments, states, UN, question Israel, put Israel state as accountable for what's going on with the Palestinian citizen of Israel. As you said, yes, we don't belong to kin state, mother state. There is no mother state for the Palestinian citizen of Israel. There is no Palestinian state to have mother state. And the only defense that we can have is the international community defense. And this defense could be important if we see that the states will intervene and question Israel about our status, to ask Israel to stop to incite against the Palestinian citizen, to take measures not to let the police and Jewish citizens to attack the Palestinian citizens. But we know that we have critique against the international community because they don't have the power to stop the war. So we don't see that in this time they will do something to defend our status. Like anyone who see what the pictures that coming from Gaza cannot imagine that these pictures happened under the eye of international community. There is no eyes of international community. There is no monitoring here for the situation. War crimes and crimes against humanity are committed against the Palestinians in Gaza now, in this moment, and we don't see serious intervention. The opposite we saw. We saw that the president of US came and gave full support for Israel. The French president came and gave full support for Israel. Of course, as I started, we understand and we against what happened with the Israeli Jewish civilians by Hamas and the attack, but doesn't give legitimacy to do genocide against the Palestinian people because this harsh attack, and with full understanding to the crime that happened against the civilians, but still has no justification to Israeli army to do what they are doing.
Final question. Worst case scenario that you think might happen from your experience in the past few weeks, how the judicial system is behaving, how the Israeli society is behaving, how the police is behaving. What do you think worst case scenario could be to the Palestinian citizens of Israel?
The problem that I don't have answer. When I don't have answer to that, that's mean that the situation is very dangerous. In political situation, when you cannot anticipate the future, that means the future could be the worst, beyond imagination. And this time, it's very, very difficult to know what will happen. And this is why it's very, very dangerous, because I don't think that anyone seriously can give answer to your question. And the only answer to your question is that there is no answer. And the no answer is answer saying that the situation could be the worst.
I hope not.
I hope not, yes.
But as you've mentioned throughout the pod of how the state is operating, I agree with what you're saying, that we are in a very dangerous situation. Dr. Hassan Jabareen, General Director of Adalah.
Thank you.
Thank you.